If you're looking to custom build in Dallas, Texas, well, in this video, one of my buddies is going through that process right now. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna run you through the 6 steps of that process that you need to know about. So if that's what you're looking for, then stay tuned because we're getting into it right now. Hey ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for the most thorough deep dive into all things Dallas, Texas, well, this is the channel that helps you do that. So go ahead and subscribe right now and tap the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date on the current market here in Dallas, Texas. We drop new videos every single week. My name is Jimmy Webb Jr. I'm a local real estate agent, born and raised here, and we're getting tons of calls and emails every single day from people just like you who are ready to make a move here in Dallas, Texas, and we absolutely love it. So if you are thinking about buying or selling here in the Dallas area, then you got to reach out, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or jump on our calendar. If you want to jump on a Zoom with us, it's all in the description below, and we've got your back when making a smooth move here in Dallas, Texas. But today we're talking about custom homes, and as I mentioned, I'm about to link up with my buddy Michael, who is going through this process as we speak. So without further ado, let's jump in the truck. All right, so we're in the car with Mr. Michael Reese. Thank you for joining us today. So the first thing that we're gonna talk about is the first step is to fashion your dream. So talk about, like, why did you do this in the first place?
So I think, for me, one of the things is obviously I've owned, specifically in DFW, I've probably owned, probably 10 homes and sold. I've listed 368 in a year. That's a home every day. So I've seen every single home you could see, Denton County, Collin County. And so I know what the selection is, right? They look for selection and affordability. I never looked into custom home building early in my career because obviously it was a more expensive option.
It's like double the price.
Yeah, I think about different markets because I've been through a lot of different markets selling homes here, for over 20 years. I definitely think that there's different options for different people, first-time home buyers. But for your custom home builder, the reason I looked for this was completely what you said, fashion my dream. So I shared this with somebody the other day at lunch was, I've never lived in a home. One thing that became important to me is, I go to other people's homes and I see things that I like. I go on vacation. I currently have a home in Puerto Rico. When I moved to Puerto Rico, I looked at a lot of custom homes ranging that now sell for, upwards of 30 million down to probably, 8 or 9 million. Really nice homes, beach homes. Some of those homes I couldn't afford, but there were things that I really liked in the homes. And so something for me at the Ritz-Carlton in Dorado, Puerto Rico is I like the cold plunge. I went to a conference one time, saw Tony Robbins, and with my daily rituals, I was always stuck kind of putting my office, especially now during, the pandemic that happened recently, a lot of people working from home. I had a lot of office space that was important for me for, producing content for the internet, which is what I do for my business as a digital marketer as well. Doing like podcast rooms, stuff like that, having 3 little children with one on the way. You have to factor all of that stuff in. So having a separate actual home, visited one of my mentors and, I remember walking out of his house and going into another house on the property, which would be, kind of like a second living quarters. And those were just things that I took note of, all the way from going into where plugs were. I stayed at a friend's house that had a beautiful custom home. And I remember trying to look for where to plug something in. And he was like, oh yeah, they're in the drawer. And he opened the drawer and the plugs were built into the drawer in the back. When I shut the drawer, it stopped itself and then it kind of slowly shut itself and was seamless. So you start to pick those things up and they're desires you want to have, and you have to ask yourself a question. Are you going to remodel, which is one option that you have if you currently own a home? Are you going to build something custom? And so for me, it was location, proximity to schools, lot size, a lot of different features that we wanted, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but for us, you know, we have a dog, and you know, you get on Pinterest and you see like these utility rooms with built-in places for where the dog can you know, sleep and kind of be put away if you have guests. And the craziest thing was, you know, where we're gonna put this big, huge Christmas tree we bought, right? So it's little things like that. And, you know, all of our kids' toys, you know, we had to improvise from one house. We turned a closet, had the chalkboard paint put up, and we turned it into kind of like a playroom, which was great when we had 2. When you have 4, that playroom needs to get a little bit bigger. And so those are the things that were important. You know, you can always put a swimming pool in any home, but you're stuck. You're stuck with the lot you have and the size of the room that you have. And sometimes you have to look at really, if you're gonna put a pool, then you have to cannibalize other space that might be important for the animal. That brings us to what I think is probably the number 2 most important thing, which is picking out the lot. You know, picking out the lot when you're doing a custom home is, you know, we're sitting here in Homestead here in Frisco. This is a neighborhood where I had a lot under contract back here in the corner. And you know, that particular lot is it has pros and cons. It's in a cul-de-sac, right? So it's in a cul-de-sac. You're like, when we were looking at this lot, we knew nobody's gonna drive down this street unless they live on the street. And the truth is there's only 2 lots on the street. The lot is almost an acre. It's surrounded by 12-foot walls on 3 sides. You only have 1 neighbor. But the cons, which is really when you're making decisions when looking at a lot, you're gonna have really a couple different options. My motive method is I talk to the builder. And that's one thing you're gonna do when you assemble your team, which is step 3, is I met with a lot of the builders, and I'm not gonna really particularly put one builder over another. I think you have to do your homework, which is what I did. I moved into the neighborhood that I was gonna build in. So I actually got to meet real homeowners that own homes that were chosen from specific builders. And the funny thing is, you know, one of the builders that I was interviewing and considering at a very high level working with, my neighbors, and soon later to become friends in the neighborhood, said they would never build with that individual again. And there was
how important do you think references are, like figuring out like how well smooth is that process going to go, things like that? Well,
that's a great point. What made me choose the builder that I eventually chose was they had a project manager. So from the business that I've been in, managing projects using Gantt charts, stuff to that nature where you're trying to work backwards from the end desired outcome, you know. So project management started with building ships. The last thing you had to do was put the propeller on the ship, and then you had to have a ribbon cutting. You had to have a certain crane in order to put that, and in order to have the crane, you had to have only 1 of 3 people that were licensed in the whole country that could actually drive that crane. And so you'd have to get them, you know, to work with you 6 months in advance. A lot of times when you're building, you have to organize all of these different traits. You have to have an organization and organize people. And some builders are just entrepreneurs, and so they don't do that well. And with communication, I grew up living with a custom home builder. He was in several lawsuits. I worked on a lot of the job sites. It was always extremely sad to see him go through those things. And it was just, he was a great home builder, but he wasn't a project manager, and therefore things would get out of control. So for me, I had some of those real life experiences. I sat down with this builder. One of the best things that I did in my process was actually laying the house out. You know, that gave me a vision. That got me excited. We did a first draft with the architect. And when we did that first draft with the architect, I remember rolling it up and wanting to show it to other people. And I was getting bought into that home and really into the process. Now, we didn't take it to scale. You know, for us, that first meeting with the architect, there was no charge. It was really kind of trying to identify, could we get the house that we wanted built on the lot that we wanted? And if so, the next step is we would have taken that to scale. So again, as we were meeting with the builder, we were sort of assembling our team, but we were also doing what is actually step 3, which is we were actually getting references, because the builder referred us to an architect. Right. But we made changes, you know, because the cool thing about this process, like in any real estate transaction, you know, the builder's not paid until there's an actual contract. And it was very clear on what we needed to do, and there were steps in the process until we actually became committed. And so that worked out really good for us. As we obtained those references, like I mentioned earlier, actually living in the neighborhood, we started making a little bit some changes to our team, and we really restarted reconsidering our lot. And the reason we did is because when we were obtaining references, we met with another builder. The builder obviously had way more organized. He had a project manager who checked on the home every day, updated a website, took pictures and photos. And the reason we even looked into them is that this is true, they started building in our neighborhood, and they were the most professional. First is I had noticed other builders in the neighborhood, and it would seem like no one was on the job site for weeks at a time. I drove by these houses every day. They have somebody on the job site. When he sat down at my table, he said, we have somebody on the job site every single day, and we update the website. And as he started showing me the processes and the tools and the systems that they use, and then obviously I got references and went and looked at houses that he had built, I felt way more comfortable with, working with that individual. And so that's something that you really need to consider is, if you get started in the process and you don't feel comfortable, don't be afraid to stop digging, or don't be afraid to make a change if it doesn't feel correct. And then really that individual did something that really anchored it for me. He said to me, Mike, the most important thing if we build your house is going to be picking the lot. When would you have time for us to go drive the lots? No one had ever offered to do that with me. Like actually, and this person was opinionated. He not only told me what lots he liked best, he gave me the reasons why and the benefits. He told me the challenges. One particular lot, he said, if you look at the elevation here, you're only going to be limited to these types of driveways. You're going to want to build on this section of the lot so that you can keep this tree, which is going to limit where you can really put a pool. But what you're going to get is, he started explaining to me the sun, how I wasn't going to have a neighbor on the other side, how a particular wall that would be, upwards of $50,000 to build was already built and established on one side of the home, provided me with additional privacy. And then he showed me the second lot that he liked, and he gave me the reason why the third lot. And so one thing you can do is, once you feel comfortable with somebody and you're going to work with them, you can leverage their experiences and their expertise by asking them the right questions. I think questions are the main thing that you can do when building a custom home. Take down all of your questions, organize your questions, and get the answers to those questions, and continue to do that process until you get comfortable.
What are some good examples of some questions like that?
So a good question that I had was time frame. I had questions about financing. That was probably one of my most important questions at the particular time when I started. And one builder told me something completely different than the other, which again is what motivated me to choose one. One builder said that I could actually buy the lot, close on the lot, then choose them. One of the other builders told me that they would buy the lot, and then they would kind of bundle the deal together, and then we'd wrap it up into one close. So they were always in control of the land. For me, I wanted to buy the lot, control the lot, and not feel still forced to work with the builder. Now, the one particular builder, once I bought the lot, I had to sign and put down some non-refundable earnest money in order to work with them. So there was a commitment, and there was what I would say is there was the potential loss of obviously the non-refundable earnest money, which made them feel comfortable moving forward, but I still controlled the lot. It wasn't like they were using the lot to hold me hostage to them. Sure. And so that was something that was important to me. So asking questions on the process, time frames, any question that's important to you as far as, I had questions about, in the very beginning, one builder in particular was a little bit more well-known. In fact, I didn't know any of them before I started the process, but I started identifying one particular name as I started asking friends that I'd been in the industry for a long time. some of my friends had known them really well. My attorney was actually actively pursuing a lawsuit against one of them. So when I met with my attorney, I asked him, hey, do you know about this builder? And he was like, yeah, I'm actually suing him right now. And so again, everybody I bumped into, I just would ask, hey, have you heard of this builder? And the cool thing for me, again, I knew what neighborhood I wanted to be in. I knew what lots were available at a very high level. I didn't particularly know which one was better than the other. But what I did know is, for me, I wanted to get my kids into the school. So I went ahead and leased a home in the neighborhood, knowing that it was going to take time to build, so that I could go ahead and start meeting the neighbors. That's what I did. And then I started the process. And so I never felt no pressure like that I was under this tight time frame, because it was a custom home. And for me, it was going to be what we would consider our forever home. I didn't want to rush it, but I didn't want my son, who was starting kindergarten, to go to a school for 2 years, then have to transfer. So we decided to find a lease in the neighborhood, lease the home, at least get into the neighborhood, which was amazing because we fell in love with the neighborhood. And it just, again, what if we would have leased in the neighborhood and realized we didn't like the neighborhood? That would have been a good feedback loop for us to then go back to the drawing board. So we took a little bit longer of a approach to the process. But again, we were very particular in all the benefits. We understood what, benefits we were going to achieve by building a custom home. And so we didn't want to rush the process.
Got you. So let's talk about some of the design step, and then the budgeting that goes along with that.
Yeah, for us from a design process, our process in building our custom home is they can't really give you a budget until they know. And again, meeting with one builder was always really vague. And what I mean by that is, no matter, they told me the price that they could build with the home. We met at their office. They were very thorough, very nice people. But I could take things away and add things, and the price never changed. It just wasn't logical sense to me. And so when I met with another builder, as I would, they were it felt like they were more transparent. They basically said, we can build anything you want. And they showed me examples. And I'm talking from bowling alleys, anything that you could want in your house, they could build, and they could do a good job. They just were, we would go off of dollars per square foot, and where that range of those dollars per square foot, where, we would have X amount, and he would explain to me, what kind of decisions would push us to the upper end of that range versus the lower end of that range. So we sat down with the architect again. We kind of got a general layout, seeing if we could fit that house on the lot. We talked about some of the different features that we wanted, whether in the backyard, or for us, one thing for us was we wanted 2 living areas. We wanted a second living area upstairs. We had saw this concept and a couple different models, fell in love with it. That way our kids, as they were, we were forecasting out a couple years to build. Kids, as they get older, they're going to want friends over. We don't want them all hanging out in the living room like they do now, where, if we have people over. So we wanted 2 separate living areas, one upstairs. And so they went through that second living area upstairs. The ones that I was considering looked just as nice as the kitchen in the downstairs. Literally had 2 kitchens. And so for us, if you understand, building kitchens isn't the cheap part. You have a lot of plumbing. You're going to have a lot of high finish out. So they would explain to us, what adding that kitchen versus just making that a game room, how that was going to impact us in the range. And we went off dollars per square foot. And at the end of the day, we got a good idea of what we could build per dollar per square foot, what that finish out was going to be, and what kind of changes and ideas and things that we needed to consider that could put us at the higher end of that range or the lower. But we were always told that we, if we stay within, these parameters and finish out, we should be about here, dollar per square foot. So we were always able to forecast and budget. And I felt really good from their process that there was going to be a lot of communication, and that I wouldn't get lost in the process and end up actually overspending due to lack of communication or lack of organization.
Which is super important, right? And then kind of going into the financing, because I know there's different options of how to obtain financing and how to structure it. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when it comes to financing, financing changes all of the time. And, depending on when you're watching this video, I think the process of financing is just the same as a builder, right? First of all, your builder's naturally going to work with people who already do financing that they've worked with. That's pretty important to work with somebody because they're a part of assembling your team. So you're going to get references from the builder. You would want to get references from different banks in the area. For me, I didn't really have any concerns as far as the financing terms. I'd bought a lot of properties, and I wasn't trying to manage, any sort of, I wasn't trying to manage any type of time frame for the financing. So for me, the financing was more about what were my options, who was I going to be working with, was there anyone particular that I liked more than the other. I've worked with so many lenders in the real estate side of things just through my occupation of being in the industry for so long. I was able to leverage who my builder recommended, and I was also able to speak to other lenders that I had relationships with in the past. One thing that you could do is just find a non-biased party. Title companies, if you've ever, and know anybody who've worked at a title company, if they've closed loans, they know when things don't close on time. They know when things are smooth and when they're not smooth. And so, you can always walk into a title company because they're the ones that get those loan docs and organize everybody together and get the deal closed. So walking into a title company and just asking, hey, have you worked with any new construction custom home lenders in the area? Or you can say, if there's a particular neighborhood that you're looking at, hey, have you closed any homes in this neighborhood that were new construction custom homes? Do you have any person you recommend? A title company is not going to recommend somebody that that they didn't get to the closing table, that made the experience bad for the consumer. They're not financially incentivized to tell you one or versus the other. They're going to probably give you a recommendation based upon where they had good experiences, which will usually translate into you probably having a good experience.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, that last step really is just tracking the construction all the way to close and getting your keys and walking in the door for the first time. So I think what you mentioned earlier about, like having that project manager who's there every day giving updates. I think that's, personally, if I were doing it, that's what I would want, is just, again, that transparency. So, anything to add?
Yeah, just the main thing. It's going to be communication on the front end. I think people never find the time to do it right, but find the time to do it over. I would organize. Me and my wife got organized. We got, really clear on what we wanted. We laid out a plan on who all we were going to talk to, what all the steps were in the process. We took a lot of notes, and I'll tell you, it was, if I could go back in time, I would have met with an architect 10 years ago and I would have sketched out my dream home, because that, for me, a goal-oriented entrepreneur, that really made it clear for me. It made me really excited. And if you do it right, it should be exciting. If you do it wrong, it'd probably be a nightmare. And I think part of the process of doing it right is you doing your homework, making sure that you assemble the right team, making sure that you didn't emotionally just jump on the first lot, that you looked at all of the different options and lots that you could have, making sure that you did your homework like we mentioned, and obtaining the financing, knowing what it is that you want. And I think if you put the right team together, everything will be as smooth as it can. I think some of the things that you want to look for as far as pitfalls is, you can get in with the builder and feel like nothing's happening. I've seen it. I've witnessed it, where literally the house next door to me was being built and there would be weeks that went by with nobody on the job site. House across the street goes under construction 6 months later, beats them in the time of finish. And there's literally people there on the job site every day. There's people on the job site cleaning up on the weekends. There's literally a fence that's locked every single day. There's obviously somebody who's, coming up in a professional truck, dressed professionally, who's overlooking the site. And, it was clear. I was like, maybe we need to talk to the people who are building the home across the street. Come to find out, they build in a real high level, high-end area in downtown. They do build up here. Now, since that's been about a year, now their signs are everywhere. and their reputation is getting them that referral business. So remember, when people have a good experience, they're going to refer you. And I think finally, leverage social media. If there's something that you're trying to get a question answered to, post it in your community groups, because there's a lot of people that'll share the negative, especially if somebody asks, and that little bit of feedback could help you from creating a nightmare, or that feedback could help you create a very enjoyable process.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, if this is what you want to do, then you got to reach out to us. So, give us a text, shoot us a call, send us an email, jump on our calendar if you want to jump on a Zoom, have a conversation about all this stuff. If you like what Michael talked about today and his experience, please tap that like button. It would mean the world to us if you did that. Make sure you're subscribed as well. You definitely don't want to miss the next video that we drop, that's for sure. And if you want to do some more research and just really on anything Dallas related, tap our Dallas, Texas Living name below. You can use our search bar in our channel and look for whatever that you're looking for. If you don't find what you're looking for, drop me a comment, let me know what you're looking for, and we'll bump up the priority based on the demand. And if you don't know where to go from here, there should be some videos on the end screen that can point you in the right direction. And until next time, Michael, thank you so much.
Yep.
You're the man, and we hope to see you around town.